There's so many times I've seen females who are taking thyroid medication, either Synthroid or levothyroxine, but they still feel like crap.
Introducing the Paramena Bliss Podcast, a show dedicated to unraveling the mysteries of achieving optimal health naturally as you transition into perimenopause and menopause. Get ready to join your host, Dr. Seth Yates, an experienced naturopathic doctor, acupuncturist, and kinesiologist, as he shares his wealth of knowledge acquired from over 40,000 patient visits and 15 years in working with perimenopausal females. Welcome to the Paramena Bliss Podcast.
Hey, this is Doc Yates. Welcome to the Paramena Bliss Podcast, and today I want to discuss, are you converting your thyroid hormones? So this will apply to people with thyroid symptoms and will also apply to people who are currently on thyroid medication prescribed from their doctor, but yet they still feel terrible. So a lot of times when this is the case, when I test people's hormones, in this case I'm not talking about estrogen or progesterone, I'm talking about your thyroid. So let me give you the breakdown of how everything works. So you have your TSH, your free T4, and your free T3. These are the main components. There are other T's out there, but these are the main ones we're discussing. So TSH is actually your brain telling your thyroid to work. And it's the one that gets everybody confused. The higher the TSH, the lower your thyroid function. So people think, I have a high TSH, so therefore I have hyperthyroid. No, it doesn't work that way. The higher the TSH, the lower the thyroid function, which means hypothyroid, not hypo. The brain gets the thyroid to work, produces something called T4. And the T4, think of it as a relatively inactive thyroid hormone. But then it gets into your body system and gets converted, either in your liver or in your muscles, to T3, the magic bullet. This is the one that helps with energy, metabolism, all of those things. Now at the same time, T3, it's like a short-lived, short-acting effect. So this is why the T4 becomes important, because it has this slow, continuous conversion to T3 so it stays balanced. Now, but here's the thing. A lot of times when I test perimenopausal females and they have these thyroid symptoms, they've gone to see their doctor who only tests TSH, they still feel terrible, and the doctor's like, well, it's definitely not your thyroid, your TSH is normal. Then when we check them, we check the TSH, the free T4, the free T3, only to find that their T3 is low. So what does this mean? It means that the brain has told the thyroid to work. The thyroid has worked and produced T3. But now the body is not converting this T3 into T4. So the brain is not converting this T4 into T3. So what does that mean? It means that the person doesn't have good energy, they don't have good metabolism, they have all the symptoms of low thyroid, despite the fact their lab's showing normal. This is even more common for clients when they're on a thyroid hormone. So the doctor's like, we do have a little bit of a thyroid issue. We found your TSH is off a little bit. We'll start you on levothyroxine, a thyroid hormone. The person takes it, they still feel crappy. The doctor checks the labs. Nope, your TSH is good now. And I went overboard. I checked the T4 as well, and it's also good. So sometimes once you're on levothyroxine or Synthroid, now this is a synthetic T4. So it should be good because you're taking T4. But then when you check the T3 and when we check it again, sometimes it's still low. It's because the body is not converting this thyroid T4 into T3. So there are a few factors, and this is one of the reasons why I see this more predominantly in perimenopause, which we're going to get into in a little bit, because there's a few factors that can inhibit how well your body is making this conversion. So sometimes the lack of conversion is due to deficiency. The most common deficiencies that I see leading to this is an iron deficiency, especially in perimenopausal females. If they're especially those cases of perimenopause where you're getting females and they're starting to get heavier periods and periods more frequently because their hormones are changing, their progesterone is getting lower, and it's causing these effects. So they start becoming a little bit more anemic and lower in iron because they're losing more iron than they're taking in. Another one is selenium. Selenium is a mineral. From a food standpoint, you say selenium, and every nutritionist is always like Brazil nuts. So yes, you can use Brazil nuts. But you can take selenium as a supplement as well. But selenium is something that plays an important role in your conversion of T4 to the more active T3. B vitamins play a role, and finally zinc. So you could be doing, you could be looking at getting a multi-B. You could do a multivitamin that has all of this in it. From a food standpoint, you could be looking at Brazil nuts, pumpkin seeds, and red meats or liver extract. Nobody likes liver extract, so probably red meat. All of those things can be addressed from a dietary standpoint, assuming there's no digestive issues. If you have a lot of digestive issues, supplements become a little bit more important to use because they're higher dosing, so the absorption is improved. So, those are the things that can lead to an inhibition if you're deficient. But what are other things that can be happening within your body that can affect how well you're converting from T4 into T3, and therefore have an effect on your energy and metabolism? Hormone changes, which is why we're talking about this in the Perimental Bliss podcast. When your progesterone gets low and when your estrogen gets low, this is a common thing that I have found that can inhibit conversion from T4 to T3. And when you make this correction, especially when you get the progesterone balanced, you will often see this improve. So an imbalance of hormones can play a role. And finally, stress. The more stressed you are, the more cortisol you're producing, the more this can cause an imbalance in your T3 conversion. So, try to reduce your stress. Make sure you're doing work to balance your hormones and support your progesterone levels. Now, there's one more factor that doesn't really play as much of a role for conversion, though it does play some. But it's not just about how much T3 you have, it's how much T3 you have is getting into the cell and having an effect. Now, the best way to drive T3 into the cell is exercise. So get some exercise. The exercise can help as long as you're not overdoing it and overtraining. It can actually help with your cortisol. There's so many people now where I'm like, whoa, I saw online that I shouldn't ever work out, shouldn't lift weights, shouldn't do cardio, because all these things can affect my cortisol and have the exact opposite effect that we're looking for. If you are severely overtraining, absolutely. But for everyone else, start training, start lifting weights, start doing cardio, make sure you take rest days, make that part of your routine. Don't look for excuses online from who's ever posting with next to no experience and use that as your excuse not to work out. You need to exercise. Every system in your body benefits from it. So let's just review. You want to make sure that you're getting the T4, which means if you have a regular acting thyroid, you want to make sure you're getting iodine into your diet. If you're already on thyroid medication, making sure that you're getting an adequate dose of your thyroid medication. You need to make sure you're converting this T4 into T3, so make sure you're getting the vitamins like selenium, zinc, iron, and B vitamins. You want to make sure that your hormones are balanced, that they're not overly stressed, and you want to make sure that this T3 can then act on the cell to ramp up your metabolism so you feel awesome, and you're going to do that with exercise. So if you get all of these things corrected. Now, sometimes if that's not the case, if you can't get it all corrected, we often do use a thyroid hormone like desiccated thyroid, which has T3 already built into it. Some people will use another strict T3, like a cytomel, that they can use along with their thyroid medication, but I'm a big fan of desiccated thyroid, to be honest. So if that's the case, we will often give people desiccated thyroid if the conversion is just not coming up, and then automatic T3, and everyone's feeling great. I hope this was helpful. This is Doc Yates signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to the Paramena Bliss podcast. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and visit perimenobliss.com for more valuable information on how you can thrive during your transition through perimenopause. Join our community of like-minded women who are dedicated to achieving optimal health naturally, and stay up to date with the latest tips, tricks, and advice from Dr. Seth Yates. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Perimenobliss Podcast.